Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. No, you haven't been transported to Sundance Film Festival. It's a different kind of indie world showcase. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. Mark, how you doing?
Doing great. I hope we didn't make people feel too sad listening to that intro. You know, feeling like they're missing out by not being amongst the glitterati in Park City. But don't worry, don't fret not. You're with America's Sweethearts.
That's right.
Patrick and Mark.
I would say a different kind of Hollywood elite.
A very different kind.
Very different kind.
Yeah.
Mark, you are currently in the process of moving.
That's right.
Because, of course, our information was leaked as part of the E3 leak, and you had to get out of your house.
Do. It was that or fake my death.
So that actually is true, that our information was included in the ESA leak, but I have received zero harassment as a result. Have you the same?
I wouldn't know. I don't answer the phone unless I know the number.
Yeah, and I forgot how to log into my email. So
you can only use that excuse for so long, Patrick.
I'm going to keep using it. Here's the thing that I find the funniest, and I know if anyone was actually negatively affected by the ESA leak,
which we know people were,
right? So
we're
my heart goes out to them.
Small, tiny part,
right,
of the internet,
right,
and our fans are generally very cool.
Well, and I give out our email address on every episode, so like if someone wanted to harass us, they could.
Yeah,
it's easy. Nintendo Cartridge Society
at gmail.com.
I don't recommend that you use that email to harass us, but you do you. Speaking of doing you, would you like to borrow our copy of Sonic Forces?
Probably.
Also, I just referred to it as our copy.
That's not true.
It's not true.
Patrick's being very generous.
I bought it on my own, with my own allowance. You can borrow it. Just write to us at Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com with a mailing address, and I will send it to you. You can send it back, and it costs you nothing.
Good news, bad news. Good news, this is the last time we're going to remind you to send us your Donkey Kong 3 high scores.
That's right.
Bad news,
yes,
you only have one day to do it.
That's right. On Friday, August 23rd, we are no longer accepting high scores in our Donkey Kong 3 high score chase. So send them in. Email
you could
them.
Win socks.
You could win 4 socks, 2 pairs.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I got panicked for a second. I was like, I only have 2 pairs of socks. I don't have 4 pairs of socks.
You dropped the ball on this. I promised them 4 socks. They're going to get them 4 socks.
How do they send that to us?
Either email Nintendo Cartridge Society at
gmail.com.
Please don't harass us. Or you can tweet at us at NinCart Society. Don't harass us there either.
The other thing you could do with those email addresses, that one email address, let's back that up. One email address,
yes.
One Twitter account.
Yeah.
Send us your Super Mario Maker 2 levels.
Yeah, we love it. We want to play all your levels all the time. Every time I turn that game on, I have fun with it. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think it's great. You always have fun with it, for sure.
Wonderful. So we got an email from Justin on the subject of sending us an email. He wrote to us at Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com, just like you can, and says, Patrick and Mark, hey, I've been a fan of your podcast since March of this year. A long-time listener to shows like Game Explain and Retronauts, but when I switched over to Google Podcasts, somehow through Google's magical algorithms, your show was recommended to me, and ever since that magical day, I've been listening to your podcasts until I left to visit my family in Japan this summer. I admit, regardless of how awesome your podcast is, being in Japan, I was quickly overwhelmed with Japanese gaming stuff and entertainment, and the new movie Dragon Quest Your Story. So he didn't hear about. Sorry, I'm skimming a little bit, but here. So I didn't hear about this Donkey Kong competition until the podcast this weekend when I was flying home and catching up on the backlog of my podcasts. Well, I decided to take you up on the Donkey Kong 3 challenge. I'm sad to say, despite my love for NES and monkeys, I could only handle one night of spraying Donkey Kong with bug spray up his monkey cheeks. So I know my score isn't going to win the Epic Sock Prize, but I wanted to submit anyway. Justin, thank you for submitting. Even if you're not super proud of the high score, we appreciate seeing it. Something interesting to note when visiting Japan this summer, all the kids are still seem to be highly into Mario Odyssey, even though it's a game that's been out for about 2 years. All their excitement around the game made me decide to finally pick it up. It was a game I had previously passed on. I'm happy I did this because it is so much better than Donkey Kong 3. I was wondering what your thoughts are on collectathon games in general. If you play them, do you find yourself using guides like YouTube videos to help you complete them, or do you attempt with no help at all? Appreciate your awesome podcast, charisma, and intro music. Thanks so much, Justin. Mark, how do you feel about collectathon games?
What's like an example of a collectathon game?
So I think in this case he's using Super Mario Odyssey as like
you have to do so many moons or like that kind of thing.
Yeah. Because Mario Odyssey's premise is here's a big space, find all the moons in it. I do think that Mario Odyssey is one of the best examples, or like one of the most fun examples of a collectathon game, because most moons require you to do something that is fun anyway to earn it. I think the bad examples of collectathon games, end up being like the Nintendo 64 era rare games, or Yooka-Laylee from a little while back. And I mean, I'll like those games if they're designed well. I don't think that the genre is inherently good or inherently bad. And a good one, like there are a few things I like more than a good collectathon game. That's very satisfying to me.
And I just generally I use guides for almost every game that I play. Like for sure. I feel so bad for guides writers.
Oh yeah.
Because that has to be such a like grinding job. Because a game comes out, maybe you have a review copy, and like immediately people are trying to take like Fire Emblem for example, right?
Yes.
Somebody had to compile the list of what gifts go to who and like what lost items go to who, and that's probably just a lot of trial and error. Totally. And then just trying to be like do it as fast as possible.
Right. And who did I give that? 'Cause I look, I will use guides for that sort of thing. But I've also just gone up to characters in Fire Emblem Three Houses and tried to give them everything in my inventory until they're like, "Oh yeah, that was mine."
Yeah, I wonder which way is faster, because I've always looked it up.
Oh yeah,
and I wonder if it's just faster, just like brute force it, because there's no penalty.
No, they're. I mean, they'll say something like, "No, how did you think that was mine?" Some of them will be rude about it.
Yeah,
but it doesn't like show that your relationship is getting worse. So like, just keep trying to give them that beat up coat. It'll be fine.
But yeah, thank you so much for writing in, Justin.
Yes, thank you. And for Mario Odyssey. Yeah, baby, that's a great game.
Oh yeah, that is a great game.
Better than Donkey Kong 3? We'll see. All right, Mark, let's get into our topic of the week, which is the Nintendo Indie World Showcase. Gamescom going on right now in Germany. Lots of big video game news coming out of it. This is Nintendo's contribution to that.
So it was a couple of things are a little bit different about this one. Previously in North America, these indie showcases had been referred to as Nindy showcases.
Yes.
The Indie World Showcase seems to be a global branding that they had previously been using in Japan for sure. I think also in Europe. Then now they're just like making worldwide. I wonder if that's also why we didn't see the presenters on screen like we had previously. It was all done in voiceover.
Yeah. Well, so, I mean, I guess one of the bigger things that has happened since the last one of these, right, is that Damon Baker is now no longer working for Nintendo.
I don't think he was around for the one in March either.
That might be true. The timeline is messed up in my head. But, I mean, if there was, for that one, his fingerprints were probably still on it in some capacity. And it seems like this is maybe just that they're falling in line with the international branding.
Yeah, I missed the, like, personal presentation, I guess, a little bit.
Well, and they weirdly called it out right at the beginning because it's still hosted by Kirk Scott and Katie Casper, who is not a Nintendo personality that I was familiar with before. But they point out that they're just the disembodied voices of them and not the actual personage.
Yeah.
But, whatever. We still learned about like 20 games. So how do you want to do this? Do you want to just like run down like game by game and see if we have anything to say?
Yeah.
About
let's do that.
Well, first of all, how did you feel about this thing? Were there exciting things in here for you? Or?
Yeah, there were some stuff that I hadn't heard about or wasn't familiar with or anything like that. I also didn't really have any expectations for this indie showcase because I felt like a lot of the big, indie games that you kind of expect to come to a platform, they've already checked a lot of those boxes in a good way. And so this was just kind of like, oh, cool. This is like a bunch of stuff for the most part that I've never heard of.
Yeah. Well, and also like you and I aren't like super ear to the ground indie game like PC gamers anyway.
Right.
So, a lot of these things are total surprises to me, which is fun. So the first game out of the box was Risk of Rain 2 from Gearbox, which they described as a classic roguelike for 1 to 4 players coming out summer 2019.
Yeah, so the trailer, the presentation of it is a lot like the what was the Edge of Tomorrow? Die Repeat movie.
That's right.
With Tom Cruise. I like the idea of this game. I'd never heard of Risk of Rain before. This is probably a great example of what you were saying, that we're not really tuned into the like PC indie scene. But the fact that this is the second one is a total surprise to me. So friend of the show, June, had mentioned to me that this game is still in beta on PC. So it'll be interesting to see how it's presented on Switch.
Yeah, like if it's still like it's still in its beta form, or if they're targeting like proper launch because summer 2019 is now.
Right.
We're running out of summer 2019. Which is sad when you think about it.
It is, but let's not dwell on it
Let's
too
not
long.
dwell too much on being sad. We've got other stuff to talk about. The next game on the list here was actually just to loop back to your live, die, repeat thing. I really like the way it presented. Like, here are the 2 co-op characters, and they make a little progress and then get beaten, and then it's like, okay, attempt number 2. And it was just kind of a comical way to present that.
I also just like the idea of a co-op like rogue like game. I've never played one before, so that idea seems really fun to me.
And it seems like that would be a fun way to like spend an evening, is just like with a buddy trying over and over again.
Yeah, I guess you could probably play with like 4 switches in a room.
Yeah.
They also in like the fine print during the game, it will also support Nintendo Switch Online.
Next up was Eastward, which is a game from Chucklefish and Pixpol. And it's got some very pretty 16-bit graphics, looking a little bit like Earthbound, a little like Notes of Secret of Evermore and Chrono Trigger.
It definitely has the 16-bit look, but like the animations are so much more than what you could do on a 16-bit system.
And it looks like it's got kind of a top-down Zelda like gameplay style to it. We were and someone tweeted us about this too. Sorry, I don't have that right in front of me. But that we were just talking about Zelda-like games like Blossom's Tale. I don't know. I don't know where the S is in that. And this would be another example of a Zelda-like game, and it is coming out in 2020.
And there's definitely like a part of my brain that anytime this kind of like art style is invoked, that it just starts like, yes, I want this.
Yeah, it does. It fills, and it's just like a little bit different from most of the 16-bit style art that we see, where like it's got that extra level of like meticulous pixel by pixel detail.
It also just looks a little bit more like Gonzo in a way.
It does look absolutely. Just a little bit crazy. Speaking of just a little bit crazy, Freedom Finger from Wide Right Interactive is a music-driven side-scrolling spaceship shmup. And that's coming fall 2019. This game looked a little too crazy for me, Mark. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, shmups are not really my thing to begin with.
Totally. And then it it seems neat in that it's got like these different kinds of art styles. Like there's the one that looks very much like kind of Adult Swim animated, like mid 2000s decade animation, and then also like goes into like an 8-bit kind of style. But I mean, I my patience for side-scrolling spaceship shmups runs out pretty quick.
It does look very silly.
It does look very silly.
Also, they have a list of the musicians who are going to be their tracks are going to be featured in. I didn't know many of them, but they have one by the radio department, which I thought was really interesting. I'd be super curious. I really like the radio department. I'd be super curious to know what track they picked for like a shmup-like game.
And actually, it seems like this whole game is focused on presentation in a lot of ways. They showed off the voice cast, which includes Nolan North and John DiMaggio, and two others who's...
Yeah, so that part of it actually reminded me, not Nolan North, and maybe John DiMaggio wasn't in... I'm thinking of Mad World, where like a huge selling point of that was... who's the voice of Bender?
John DiMaggio.
Oh, okay. Then it was him.
That's probably why it reminded you of it. But so it means that they're showing off the names of the actors and the names of the bands that provided music for it. So like, if nothing else, this thing knows what image it's selling, and you gotta respect it for that.
So next in the presentation was a game called Roki, which looks very pretty.
Yes.
But I have no idea how this game plays.
No, because it looks like it's kind of a like isometric, or was this the one that it was either isometric or side-scrolling? I can't remember now. But it just seemed like the character was moving without obstacles, and like just encountering creatures.
Yeah, it also had that kind of like really electric, glowy aesthetic to it that reminded me a lot of a game coming later, but also reminded me of just like stuff we had seen before.
Yeah. So it's pretty. I'm interested to hear more about it, I guess. And they just gave the release window of winter for it.
Torchlight 2 is coming to Switch. This had been previously announced, but now we know that it's coming on September 3rd. And Switch players get a free pet unicorn and a free pet yapper.
Now, this is not to be confused with the Yamper, who is the electric corgi in the new Pokemon game.
That's right.
You got to play Pokemon to get that thing.
So really, it's Torchlight 2, which was basically a game that exploded before Diablo in popularity. Exploded in popularity before.
So this game did not actually explode?
No.
Okay.
Kind of like satiating that itch for a dungeon crawler type game before Diablo 3 came out. And it looks really cool. Again, it's one of those things where like it looks and plays very much like Diablo, but definitely has a different personality.
Yeah.
It's much more like cartoony. A little sillier, I guess.
It's weird because I feel like Diablo is always toying with the idea of being silly, and then it's like, no, we're self-serious. And then like maybe there's like a pun in the name of the sword, and then it's like, no, but we're very serious. Next up, we saw Skater XL from Easy Day Studios, and it seems like they are taking both the like best parts about Tony Hawk Pro Skater and Skate, and making a skateboarding game out of it.
Yeah, so the arcadey aspects of Tony Hawk Pro Skater is what always appealed to me about that series. That and the Rockin' soundtrack.
Oh yeah, give me that Goldfinger, baby.
And so the like with Skate and later games that became more like skateboarding simulators, that became much more challenging for me to get into.
And it does actually seem like this is maybe leaning a little bit more into the skate side of things.
Well, whenever they're like total board control and physics based,
then you know that like, I mean, total board control sounds attractive if that's something that you can actually genuinely master,
right?
But I mean, just like a real skateboard, you have total board control on a real skateboard, but you're gonna fall most times, especially if you're trying to do a trick. This game is out just sometime in 2020.
And then we have Europa.
Yeah,
it's a 3D platformer that kind of reminded me of, in the little bit that we saw, of Captain Toad with some like gravity stuff thrown in.
Yeah, there's definitely the gravity is way warped, that you're like walking around surfaces.
For whatever reason, the avatar, the character you're playing,
yeah,
who was that like kind of like rounded but chunky, just like AOL online mascot thing that becomes orange. I was watching this and I'm like, this game has to have been developed in Europe or Montreal. This game is so European.
100% so European. But it looks cute and interesting. I noted that the world of this game seems sort of Splatoon-y, like it's vaguely post-apocalyptic, and there's like some graffiti around, and like you. So the tagline for this was "You puzzle, you platform, you paint, Europa," which is I don't know. It seems like a cool game.
I feel like in describing all of these, we have sounded like
insane.
We're like insane and also 80 years old.
So
where we're all like, oh, it's cute, it's silly.
I stand by it. Comes out this winter.
Super hot.
And this is just super hot. Is coming to Switch. This game has been on like everything, right?
Yeah, I think it's like 5 or 6 years old at this point.
It is a first-person shooter whereby the action only moves forward. Time only moves forward when you do. So there's a lot of kind of like dodging bullets in bullet time, but I guess you time.
And it also dropped on Monday.
Yes,
this was one of 2 stealth drops.
Yes,
that happened around the Indie World Direct.
Next up was Dungeon Defenders Awakened from Chronic Games, which includes 4-player split screen. I didn't know that was still a thing.
Well, they also teed this up by saying it was like an indie classic.
Yes,
but I'm not familiar with this series.
No, neither am I. It looks kind of like hack and slashy dungeon crawler, but like is actually 3D. Like normally when I say hack and slash dungeon crawler, I think of a Diablo-like game.
Mm-hmm.
But this camera is like nice and low and seems a little bit more action gamey. This one is a timed console exclusive, so it's coming to Switch first in February 2020. I wonder if Dungeon Defenders is an indie classic and Dungeon Defenders Awakened is new because they're saying console exclusive. I don't know.
I think so. I think that's true. Next was The Tourist, which is a low poly, kind of has like the Minecraft aesthetic a little bit, but it's blocky characters, but much more defined than like Minecraft.
Yes.
Much more detailed.
And it looks like it's a puzzle adventure game in like a modern tropical setting.
Yeah, so I wasn't sure if this is the one that the person who tweeted at us was referring to as like a Zelda-like game. I guess it's not like a 2D Zelda game. It kind of had like a little bit of like a Wind Waker vibe.
Yeah, or like a 3D Game Heroes vibe. Mark, do you remember a couple of years ago when we were reading what was the name of this comic series about it was like Bird of Paradise? Do you remember this? It was like a Hawaiian detective.
Yes, I do remember this.
I got vibes of that series from this game because you're playing like a guy in a Hawaiian shirt, like with a mustache and like big aviator glasses, who's like exploring, caves and tombs and stuff. So it's got a very the style is very specific. I don't really know what I can tie it to, though.
I don't know either. One thing that I thought was interesting as I was watching the trailers, I was thinking of so many like young adults at this point who grew up playing Minecraft.
Yeah.
And who that sort of like blocky aesthetic would have the same sort of nostalgia. When I was talking about, anytime there's that 16-bit aesthetic, I'm super into it. I wonder if we're getting to the point where there are people who that is true for like the look of Minecraft.
Yeah, I mean, I would totally believe that.
And I feel like The Tourist is the first game that I've seen that, purposefully or not, is kind of capitalizing on that.
Yeah, totally.
Skellboy from Ukami Games looks like a real-time combat Paper Mario-esque game with horror movie creatures, characters.
Yeah, there's skeletons and vampires and stuff like that. So the characters and like all the background stuff, they're all like pixelated sprites that exist on like a 3D plane. So it's a little bit Octopath Traveler-y, and a little bit Paper Mario-esque.
Also, they gave a really specific release date.
December 3rd, 2019.
Lock it in. You can also lock in Earth Knight from Cleaversoft. So this game looks amazing.
Yes.
It's like, it really has, the gameplay looks like it really has Sonic vibes.
Totally.
Except instead of like Green Hill Zone, it's dragons.
It's like dragons flying through the air. So like sometimes this game looks like a shmup, right? Where especially like in the flying sections. But there are also just like parts where you're playing as either this little girl or was it
like an old man?
Like an old man. He's got a big beard.
Yeah.
And they're like running and dodging, around like all these creatures and like weird platforms and stuff. And like the game just looks so pretty. Has this like almost like painterly, like storybook quality to it. And would also go into like sort of behind the character camera when they're like diving through diving back onto the planet or something. It seems wild. This game seems wild.
Yeah, it looked really cool. It's probably one of the games that I was most excited about coming out of this showcase, partly because you don't really see games try to ape Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah, you definitely don't. And you don't really see games going for this kind of visual style either. How many times have we said pixelated or 16-bit or, retro or blocky or whatever, or even like animated. And while this does look like, it doesn't look like a cartoon. It looks like someone, like very careful, like colored pencil drawings for like a children's book. So it looks like something that nothing else really looks like, and it looks like Sonic the Hedgehog, which no one else really does.
And it's coming this year.
That's right.
Which seems like it's going to be really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Next, they had a sizzle reel for the Hotline Miami collection.
Yes.
Which I thought was so funny, because if you are not familiar with Hotline Miami at all,
you would nonsense.
Have no idea.
Yeah.
It's like the trailer was basically just overhead shots zooming in on
really pixelated characters in the game.
Doing nothing of particular interest. And granted, Hotline Miami is incredibly violent.
Yes.
But they've shown off incredibly violent things before. So I'm assuming they just figured Hotline Miami, people just know what this is.
Yeah, you want it or you don't. It was the other game that released on Monday.
It's both games for in one download for I think like $25.
Have you played Hotline Miami?
No, I haven't played either of them.
Hey, me neither.
But I played Katana Zero, which people say is very similar. Even when I was watching the trailer for Hotline Miami, the soundtrack started up, and I was like, oh yeah, this soundtrack sounds exactly like Katana Zero, which is cool. Katana Zero was a really cool game.
Which, again, props to Earth Knight for not looking and sounding like everything looks and sounds.
Mm-hmm.
Then we get like a full-blown sizzle reel for a bunch of games coming out. Should we just speed through these the way they sped through them?
Yeah, a lot of these I don't even really particularly remember.
Yeah, so Blasphemous from Team 17 Digital and The Game Kitchen is a 2D Castlevania-esque game that's out September 26, 2019. Close to the Sun from Wired Productions and Storm in a Teacup is an atmospheric first-person puzzle adventure out sometime in 2019. Cat Quest 2, which is cats running around with swords and stuff. Fall 2019. Spiritfarer, which was an action platformer out spring 2020. Trine, how would you say this?
Trine
4, The Nightmare Prince, is October 8th, 2019. Creature in the Well, which is a game that we did talk about in the March Nindie Direct. This one actually gets a release date. So it's kind of like a pinball-based hack and slash kind of game.
It looks really cool. I would love to see somebody who's skilled at it play it. I know for me it would be a nightmare, but basically it seems like you're shooting these like electric orbs.
Yeah.
Or like orbs of electric power around.
Sure,
and then
that's a very important distinction.
It is. I completely
They're
agree.
either electric orbs or orbs of electric power.
And then you're using your sword to kind of like bat them around.
Or baton.
Yet to be revealed.
But so the release date is September 6th, 2019, which is very, very soon. Then we saw One Finger Death Punch 2. I don't know what that is. December 2nd, 2019. Best Friend Forever.
This looks very cute.
Yes, this is a dating sim. Maybe it's a dating sim. It has some sort of social components, but also you have a dog.
Yeah, maybe you're just socializing dogs.
Yeah, it could
be.
Like,
that also would be super fun. I also just want to mention that we had... we love... so this is a sidebar.
Yeah.
We love when people send us Switch friend requests.
Yes.
You can find our friend codes in the show notes.
Yes.
I saw that one of my friends, a listener, was playing Dream Daddy. And that reminded me that I need to buy that game.
I do as well. I feel like this game has a similar aesthetic to Dream Daddy.
I think so too. That's what made me think of it.
Yeah. Yes. Obviously, I should have put those dots together.
It's also Best Friend Forever is coming out on February 14th, 2020, Valentine's Day. Apropos.
Very good.
Phogs, PHOGS, exclamation mark. This, it's like you wrote down, it's a mix of like Cat Dog, the Nicktoon from the early 2000s, and Snake Pass.
I believe I wrote it's a nightmare mix of Cat Dog and Snake Pass.
Okay, so instead of being a cat and a dog, you seem to be two dogs.
Yes.
But there's no getting around the fact that they look and move like penises.
Yes, it's a problem, which was not a problem with Snake Pass.
Or Cat Dog, honestly.
I don't know. Cat Dog makes me uncomfortable.
Well, but Cat Dog, they didn't have to use like Havoc physics or whatever.
Next up is What the Golf. It's a silly golf game. It's out this winter. Kine or Kine, I'm not really sure. So this looked in this showing here like a moving objects around a space puzzle game. It also made an appearance in the Google Stadia Direct. And which made it clear that there are musical elements to it too, where like the pieces that you're rolling around are musical instruments, and like the music changes as you move them and reconfigure them. So that actually seems a little bit more interesting to me after having seen the Stadia thing.
They also showed off Hypercharge Unboxed from Digital Cyber Cherries, a toy soldiers first-person shooter coming out this winter.
And next was Northgard, which is like a Viking style like tactics game, September 26, 2019.
Also Sparklight. This one is kind of like Blossom Tales.
Yep, so another one like that, fall 2019. And then the last on the sizzle reel was a Sizzle Reel. I don't know what I actually said. Sizzle Reel was the new Munchkin game, Quacked Quest.
So Munchkin is a card game, right? Is that where I know the name from? Okay.
Yeah. And they use what is it? Cards or miniatures? I think it might be both. Because I know they also do a lot of like licensed stuff. So that you'll see, like a Batman Munchkin game or whatever. And this it doesn't look like they're not just bringing a card game to Switch. It looks like it's actually a video game. Again, I will say hack and slash again, because that's what it looks like. And that's fall 2019.
And then finally, there was a one more thing.
Always got to have one more thing.
Yeah, for Indie World. And it's Ori and the Blind Forest Definitive Edition from Xbox Game Studios, coming September 27th.
Which is very soon.
Same day as Dragon Quest 11 S Echoes of a
nope.
Echoes of a
I don't Elusive Age.
Elusive Age, yes.
Definitive Edition. Yes. So this is was previously an Xbox exclusive, but that doesn't seem to mean too much anymore.
Yeah, the second time one of those games has come to Switch after Cuphead.
Yep.
And also interesting, around the time the Cuphead was revealed, there were rumors that Ori and the Blind Forest was also in the works. So I have not played this game. I don't own an Xbox, but I know it's super well regarded.
Yeah, and looks, or at least from the trailers that we saw on Monday, looks very exciting and very good. Like I'm totally gonna pick this up.
And I just really, I think it's cool to see Xbox and Nintendo working together, or at least like collaborating on games like this, because really, Nintendo has said this for a long time, but Nintendo and Microsoft are both video game companies, but they don't really play in the same space anymore.
Yeah, it's true. And like it's interesting because I do think that Sony plays in the same space as both Microsoft and Nintendo in some ways. Like they're playing the you like our exclusives, so you need our platform to play our exclusives, like Nintendo, but they're also playing the we have powerful hardware that can play any game, just like Microsoft.
And maybe this is just some of my own ignorance, but I also feel like Sony makes more of an attempt, especially recently, to be like, we develop games for players of all ages. Right?
Yeah, more so than Microsoft.
Yeah, I mean, you saw Microsoft's presentation at E3, and it was like, we're making games for all kinds of gamers that are into, like hyperviolence.
Yeah.
Like there's not really anything for families or kids on that platform.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense to me that Microsoft and Nintendo can kind of leverage each other's strengths.
Yeah. Yeah. And if it means that we get more of the not hyper-violent Microsoft exclusives on Nintendo, then so be it.
Or if, eventually someday down the line we get
I don't want to play Gears of War. Oh, okay. Yeah, Game Pass on Nintendo Switch would be, or even xCloud or any of the Microsoft services, seeing them on Switch does not seem impossible. Doesn't seem inevitable, but it seems like something that might happen and would be super cool. All right, that was the Nindy World. No, not an Nindy World Showcase. The Indie World Showcase. Mark, let's close this out. I would love to hear what everyone else is excited for in this thing. I think there are a lot of games in this that sound like they're at least worth playing. So email us and let us know what from this showcase you were interested in. Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com, or tweet at us at NinCartSociety. Thank you for listening. Please rate, review, subscribe on Apple Podcasts. If you like this episode, you can share it on Facebook or Twitter. On Twitter, I'm at Patrick_Ellers. Mark is at MK Mitchell, and the show is at NinCartSociety. You can also check out the Facebook page, which is just Nintendo Cartridge Society. Olivia Duncan made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Eller saying thank you for listening.
Campfire.